Welcome to House of Horns for the Rams Eagles post game show. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and as always, joining me is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated and MQB. Gilbert, that was I guess, a terrible second half to watch there for the Rams. But what was your biggest takeaway? Because I mean, in that first half, they looked like they couldn't miss. They start off the second half, they cost a turnover on defense. They go in and they score, and then all of a sudden, everything just went down the tube there for the Rams. But how are you doing? And what was your takeaway from this matchup?
Yeah, earlier in the week, I said, or I predicted, this could be a little bit of a moral victory for the Rams. They'll keep it close, they hang with the Eagles, and they'll probably lose at the end here. But it's not a moral victory. This was a blown opportunity. You lost one. You blew it in Philly. You had a golden opportunity, and you couldn't come through with a 19-point advantage in the second half. That game was going your way in every single possible phase of football. Even to open the second half, you get a fumble and you score. And what the heck happened? And I'll say this, and more on the Eagles side, people need to put more respect on Jalen Hurts' game, his name, because he's just doing what the team is asking him to do. You want to play ugly football? You want to run the football? I'll do it. Oh, we're behind. Now you want to start calling better plays? I was a play caller in Philadelphia because I could throw the ball too. I've been in a couple Super Bowls, and he started throwing the ball. And Victor, and just going back, I'm going all over the place, but two quick points here. I'll give the Rams defense points for being better, with the run defense. They're a little more physical. Nate Lamons is the real deal, but they're too small in the secondary. They don't have enough talent in the secondary. They don't have real cornerbacks. They don't have real safeties. You let Jalen Hurts back in the game, and then when AJ Brown got his opportunities, he flexed the muscles and he ran all over your secondary. So you need to fix that. Let's Snead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to go over with this. I feel like when I really look at it and being objectively here, Gilbert, I feel like the Rams lost this game in the trenches. Now, I can make the excuse and say, hey, when you lose your left guard and your right guard in this game, that's pretty much when this game changed, right? The inability to be able to block in the middle in the middle of this interior of line that's where the Eagles took advantage of it. Now, at the same coin, I could also look at the other side and look at the Eagles. They lose All Pro Lance Johnson, Lane
Yeah, Lane
Johnson,
Johnson.
sorry, and then they're able to make adjustments to where they are able to fix that right tackle position and are able to take advantage of it. And then you look at the secondary, Gilbert. I mean, that was our biggest thing coming into this season was like, hey, the defensive line is going to do their job, but if that secondary can't hold up, then you're gonna run into problems. They gave up 226 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. You're not going to win games like that. And I get it. You had two field goals blocking this game, and you blow a 19-point lead in the second half. I get all that, but at the same time, it comes down to big boy football. And I feel like the Rams just, not only missed an opportunity, but they failed miserably in this matchup.
Yeah, no, that was a perfect breakdown by you because we were in sync there. I couldn't get to everything. I felt like I was talking too much there, and you get into the offensive line, you get into special teams. That those are perfect examples of why this was a total collapse on both sides or all three phases of the football team here. And yeah, you go out and get Devonta Adams, but how's that any good when you can't protect Matthew Stafford? We've been saying all off season the offensive line's a little suspect. I don't know if I trust his O line. There was injuries in camp. There was some shuffling in camp, and I'm like, okay, maybe they'll get it done here. And then when you finally leave the AFC South, the Texans and the Titans, and you play some real competitors here, that's what your O line does there. And then also, I don't blame Stafford for this, but when your O line is not, producing, when your new pieces are not working, when your new game plan is not working, what do? You go to all reliable Puka Nakua, you go feed him, and you become a one dimensional, predictable passing offense, and just go to Puka. And to their credit, they ran the football well. They're running pretty well with Kyron and Blake Corum, but there's just so much to unpack where to summarize it again, they just don't have enough horses to compete with the Eagles. And I get it. They were up there for 19 points there, but they were just kind of getting lucky on multiple facets of the game. And like now, if you're the Eagles and you play the Rams again, and then you're the OC who's struggling there, Kevin Patullo, hopefully I don't butcher his last name. You're thinking, okay, well, let's just run. Let's just pass the football here because their secondary is not good. We're trying to do the tush push. We're trying to run the football pretty heavily. For the most part, that does work with other teams, not with the Rams. To their credit, they invested in the defensive front there. They got Nate Landman. They got some good pass rushers, but the secondary needs a lot of work. So they just made the adjustments there. And then if you can't, block, you can't protect the field goal. How do you expect Joshua Carter to make the field goals? And he was making the field goals in the first half. So back-to-back block field goals. That's a bad part all around there for the unit. And then letting Jordan Davis get that touchdown was like the cherry on top for everything. So if you're a better for the Rams plus 3.5, sorry to you. That was a tough way to lose.
Yeah, and I want to get to some of these comments, Gilbert, and then we'll go off of that. Daniel Calderon says that was embarrassing. We need a cornerback bad, and our red zone offense isn't good. And again, we pointed this out. We were like, hey, maybe we're being a little critical, but the red zone offense has been pretty bad all season long. And again, you cannot settle for field goals, especially when you're trying to go on the road and win. He's right. I mean, you go 2 out of 5, you score 2 touchdowns there. Daniel Calderon says they go 2 out of 5 in the red zone. That's not going to get you wins in this league, and especially when you're trying to go into a hostile environment and win. And I did like they were being aggressive. They went for it on 4th down, but at the same time, Gilbert, as you mentioned, you know, when you don't win the trenches, this is what ends up happening. And you talked about moral victories. I'll say this: the defensive line stepped up. They did their job, as you mentioned earlier. They sacked Hurts 4 times. They forced a fumble. They held Hurts and Saquon to a combined 84 yards on the ground. So great job there by Chris Shula. I want to give him credit for that, but you need to fix that secondary as Daniel Calderon mentioned, because you're not going to win games like that.
Yeah, I don't want to, sound like the sky is falling for the Rams. They're
No.
still a very good team. It's only week 3, but the reason why we're talking like this, you and I, Vic, is because we know that the Eagles are going to stand in the way. They're going to probably be there in the playoffs. You're probably going to have to go through them again. So you got to find these ways to get over the team that has your number. And one thing you got to do is find some help with the secondary. When the trade deadline is nearing in November, when you see people giving up and waving the white flag, and there's a cornerback that's available, one that's not old, one that's kind of maybe in its prime, and you got to spend a little money on, go get that cornerback. You need some help in the secondary. This is not working here, and it's not just the Eagles. What if you play, the Lions, who we just saw them, light up, a team for 52 points here. So think about all the teams you're going to face, even the Buccaneers. When they get healthy. I know Mike Evans got hurt, but Egbuka, Chris Godwin coming back, like all these things, they matter. You got to have a good secondary, and I get it. When you have a good pass rush, for the most part, it makes life easier for the secondary. If you get home, you don't have to cover. If you're getting a lot of pressure, you don't have to cover as long. So there are benefits to this method, but at the same time, when you're investing on the pass rushers, you're investing in the wide receivers, and that's where all your money goes. You got to at least have both skills, both strengths produced. One did, the pass rush did. The other ones, the wide receivers, they did not, because there was no offensive line protection. So to me, it's like you're thinking, okay, there's two ways to win games here, but there's a lot more to it. You got to have an offensive line to protect. You got to have a secondary that can cover too. You can't just ask these 2 areas to bail you out constantly. But I know I'm sounding very negative, but it's because when January rolls around, I don't feel good about this team when it comes to matchups in different aspects. And even like today, special teams could definitely be a one-day thing, but everything else seems like a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're being positive, if we talk about some of the positives too in terms of special teams, I love the fact that Cardi has kind of, you know, taken over in terms of kicking off the ball. They put the Eagles in tough
Oh
position
yeah.
right on kickoffs, which is great, and they took advantage of that. But then you have the block kicks there. And, Delver says here, Dotson and Dedich started out playing good. Yeah, they did. The problem is that interior just got blown away in the second half. And then you have Coleman Shelton with the terrible with the terrible penalty in the red zone that cost you, 4 points there. You ended up having a kick, Gilbert, and those kind of things. Like I said, you have to clean up. And I'm glad that they ended up, facing the Eagles early on in the season, because it allows you to fix a lot of these issues. You know where to go from here. And so it's a good position to be in. I get it. You would have been 3-0 heading into a matchup against a 3-0 Colts team. And that would have been great. But at the same time, at least you know where your deficiencies are. Like we talked about it, even in the wins, we saw these things. And so now that everybody else can see it, it kind of, it's pushed to the forefront, and we can talk better about it without people saying, "Hey, you guys are being way too critical about this Rams team." And you know, we know they're going to be in the playoffs. It's just, as you mentioned earlier too, is this is stuff for down the road when you face the big boys, and so you want to get those, things fixed.
Yeah, like they're definitely fixable, but you gotta now be aggressive on the trade market. You gotta get pieces for this roster. And to go back to the draft, you gave up your first round pick for what? Like what does that help you for 2025? Nothing. And then you get the second round pick, Terrace Ferguson. What has he done all year? Nothing. They're not even using him in the passing game. So to me, I get it. You get two extra first round picks. I get it. You get to save money at the secondary. You get to save money at linebacker. But how does this help you win in today's football, 2025? How does this help you beat the Eagles? How does this help you beat the Lions? How does it help you beat the Buccaneers? I know the Packers lost, but even the Packers, like, how does this help you win today? And all these moves in the offseason, like I get the thinking, but there was always like, I like that, but what about that? And it's just it's like they're trying to find the way to cheat the system or beat the game here. And now you got to get aggressive and find some corners and not just go through the wire and see who gets released here. Not just hope that Emmanuel Forbes turns out to be the first round pick that he was a couple of years ago. You got to do some personnel decisions here. And when you got Stafford potentially being on his final year, when you got to probably find the rookie quarterback next, you're like, the time to strike is now. And they got to make some moves. You got to be aggressive. You got to be on the trade market, and you got to find some DBs are going to be available. So to me, that's one area. Maybe even find some good O-line depth there. I'm not as concerned with that, but I do feel like the secondary is a bigger problem, and then O-line's not too far away. Second problem.
Yeah, I think if Avila and Dotson are healthy, then that changes things, and I think that's part of it. That's why I'm not as concerned. It's just in-game adjustments. That's where they got killed in terms of not having those two guys, and we knew that was going to be an issue against this really good defensive line of the Eagles, and the issues that they provide. I thought they did a good job of going after this Big Fangio defense.
Yeah.
They went after their weaknesses, and I saw Jacorian Bennett trying to guard Puka Nakua, and they went after him. They used Jordan Whittington. But the other thing too, Gilbert, and I want to switch it back to the offense here too, is you can't be too reliant on Puka and Devontae Adams when 23 of the 33 passes thrown by Stafford go to Puka and Adams. That's not a good recipe offensively. I did like the fact that they went and they gave Kyron Williams 20 carries here. He
Yeah.
almost hit the 100-yard mark. He was running angry in this game, which I loved. I just want to see a little bit, and Blake Corum was out there balling too. So a little bit more emphasis on the running game going forward, Gilbert. But I get it. You lose those two guys, and that was tough. So we'll see what happens going forward. But
Yeah.
I'm with you. They need a trade for a cornerback at some point, and they're gonna be in the market with the Eagles too here, because I'm sure they want to fix the other side of their corner as well. Because, like I said, they were going after that weakness, which was that second corner for the Eagles.
Yeah, like the Eagles can't find the number 3 wide receiver, but they get by because they have a versatile offense. You could run the football with Saquon. Jalen Hurts provides versatility on his own with his arm, with his legs, and you even have tight ends like Goddard. But this Rams offense, they only have 2 wide receivers, and I get the running game is better, but you need to have a third playmaker, tight end, or even a pass catcher running back, and then a wide receiver, and they have some there that are talented, and they don't use it for whatever reason. They don't want to give Jordan Whittington more opportunities. They don't want to use Terrence Ferguson. No Davis Allen. But to me, they become predictable. And then, like you mentioned earlier, Vic, when the O line is not producing, Matthew Stafford's going to do what he feels comfortable with, and that's going to go feed heavily to Puka Nakua. He's going to get 100 yards receiving, but it's just not the way you win games. So you got to spread the football around. And again, we're sounding like the sky is falling, but that deep shot to Devontae Adams in the first half, that's what you want to do. And to me, I thought the Rams were going to win this game by maybe controlling the clock and playing a little more, move the chains, not taking shots down the field. Devontae, Puka, try covering this 10-yard play here, this out route, this in route, whatever it is for short yardage in the intermediate game. And for the most part, they were doing that, but they weren't really doing that in the second half. And they kind of were like, cool, we got a deep shot. I think maybe we could try this. And when you can't protect Matthew Stafford, you gotta make the drives longer. You gotta kill the clock. And they had the weapons. If you're gonna play two-man football, you had it with Devontae and Puka. They couldn't do that, and they were running the football too as well. So maybe part of the conversation we should have, like, did Sean McVay screw up in the second half with the play calling, with dictating the pace, trying to find the rhythm of the game, how to stop the bleeding? None of that was answered in the second half of Sean McVay.
Yeah, and I honestly I thought about that, and I wanted to put a lot of the blame, but when you have a first half like the way he called the game, I thought that was really good in the first half. You're right. I mean, when you blow a 19-point lead in which what is it? They going into the game, they were 106 Gilbert 107-1 since 1984 when leading by 19 points or more. And
Wow.
and you lose a game like that, Gilbert, that's and you have to give the Eagles credit here too, man. Like one of the things that I looked at, I thought it was a great plan by the Rams too. Like they kept blitzing Jalen Hurts, which he still has an issue with, but at the end of the day, when you have guys like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and you can just throw the ball up there and they'll catch it, that's something big for to have. And so they did their job. They took advantage of the opportunities, and they beat the Rams at their game there. And so they they made them switch up, and the Eagles took advantage of it at the end of the day. So a lot to kind of go over in terms of a lot to fix there for the Rams, but I feel confident that they will. And like you said, they're going to face this team down the road. So it's just more thing. It just sucks because, like you said too, like now Nick Sirianni is 4-0 against McVay. You're supposed to be the better coach, and yet you
Yeah.
continue to get out coached by Nick Sirianni and Big Fangio.
Yeah, no, before we close out here, like, that was such a perfect first half. Like, even the way they were just hurting Hurts and hitting him. Like, was it that sack from McCullough? Like, he lit him up. That was a
Yeah,
massive hit there. Jared Verse has some massive hits too. Like, they were hitting Jalen Hurts, pretty heavily and often in the first half. You were getting to that All Pro offensive line. You were doing a bunch of damage. So, like, that's a positive. And I also like that they were like trash talking. The Eagles got, because the Rams got on the Eagles' head because I think there was that flag there in the second half. Was it Jalen Carter that was talking trash there? So, like, you could tell the intensity was up. Like, the Rams were feeling good. They were physical. They were smacking the Eagles in the mouth. And, but that's the credit to the Eagles. They know how to adjust. They know how to be in big time games. They have
yeah,
versatility. They have weapons. They have a balanced roster throughout, their team. So, I know for AJ Brown, it must suck to wait for his turns because they're running the football so much. But, like, when they throw the ball, he's still damn good. Like, he was just, making the
yeah,
DBs
which
look
is a
like
waste. I mean, I'm
yeah,
sorry, I
well, that
know.
too, yeah.
Yeah,
But he was
yeah,
just making the DBs look like high school kids, and, like,
yep.
I'm like, oh, there goes AJ Brown.
Yep. And you forget, I mean, he should be getting the ball a lot more. Like, and that's on their OC. The Rams took advantage of it. We have a couple of Eagles fans on here, and I'm sure I kept seeing it on Twitter. Like, people were like, "Hey, they finally threw the ball." Like, and yeah, like I understand the frustration with Eagles fans, but at the same time, I also understand the frustration with the Rams because they can't seem to beat this team, Gilbert. But I wanted a couple more things here from the guy from our comments. You have Daniel Combs. Is Ferguson hurt or what's wrong? I honestly, Gilbert, I'll say this. I just think that he probably hasn't. He missed that time during training camp. My guess is that hasn't bought into the playbook yet, or he hasn't gotten it down, or else they don't trust him to be out there. So I would be that would be my guess, Gilbert.
Yeah, my only thing here, and a little bit of criticism on on McVay. I think McVay wanted somebody to play the 11 personnel, which means do everything if you're the tight end. And for a rookie, it's hard to grasp all that. Be a pass catcher, be a blocker, do everything that's required in 11 personnel. And I think that's what McVay ultimately wants. And instead of just saying, you know what, just go out there and make plays in the passing game, we'll play 12 personnel. He won't do that. He doesn't want to. Like I'm starting to give up on that thing, that being a thing from McVay. So to me, I don't think he's able to catch up to do what Higbee does and the other veteran tight ends do.
Yeah, and Kobe Parkinson was active in this game, so we'll see what happens. We have a couple more here, and we'll go. James Wheelock says trade for a defensive back. Yeah, I mean it's pretty obvious. They're like I said, they're going to be in competition with the Eagles because the Eagles also need they'll need a corner as well. And then you have Delbert here says taunting for Puka. I'm not like the whole the new rules, how they're going with this is so stupid. I just I didn't see a penalty on that play, but hey, it is what it is. That they're calling in more closely, so you just got to be careful with flexing and whatever you do.
Well,
I
speaking
guess.
about calling it closely, they missed a false start on the first touchdown for the Eagles. Supposedly, they're going to call that closely on the
Yeah.
touch push, but they didn't. They did not in this game, at least.
Yeah, we even have an Eagles fan here. So that Pukaton was BS. And then one more here. It says, in any sport, you must beat the champ. You got to keep your foot on their throat. Nice try, but not this time. Onward, puros cuernos. So shout out to Delbert there for that comment. Yeah, I mean there was a lot. I mean there was a lot of missed calls in this game on both sides. So that's why I don't think that came down to that. As we mentioned, the Eagles took advantage of their opportunities here, and they got a great win. You got to take advantage of your opportunities. You can be that bad in the red zone and expect to win. So yeah, and we'll be back, Gilbert, on Tuesday to talk. I mean on Wednesday, sorry, to preview the matchup against the 3-0 Colts. Surprising 3-0 Colts. So we'll see we'll see what happens. And then one last question here from JK47. He says, "Do you think we win the division?"
Yeah, because I still think the Rams are better than the Cardinals, 49ers, and Seahawks. Seahawks are lining up the Saints, but that's the freaking Saints. And we'll see who's the
Yeah.
best team right now between Cardinals and 49ers. But it's like a 6-3 game right now. So
Yeah,
uh
and I'm gonna
go ahead.
say this, Gilbert. I still think they do, but I think that what separates the other teams is that the Rams have a first place schedule. The rest of the
Yeah.
teams don't, Gilbert, and so that's I think you got to take advantage of games like this where you had an opportunity to take one from the Eagles when you don't, and the other teams are going up against second, third, and fourth place schedules like the 49ers. Like I'm interested in see what happens with this Cardinals 49ers because that's going to tell us a lot in terms of whether or not the Rams are going to be in a tight division or it's going to or someone out or they're going to be okay to win this division.
Yeah, whenever the Rams start playing in their NFC West opponents, like, are you gonna like beat them up pretty good to show that you're closer to the Eagles level, or are you gonna be in close games with them to show this division's pretty tight and it's not really that good of a division? It's more a division filled with pretty average teams, which I think the Rams are still a level above, but we'll find out soon.
Yeah, so we usually give out a 12-pack of beer to a player of the game. It doesn't feel right to give anybody just with with how bad this game ended up. Had they won, I think we'll only give someone a 12-pack of beer if they win. It doesn't seem right to give one out in this game, although that defensive line played their ass off. That was probably the best part of this team today. JK47 said, I think we make it to the NFC Championship and lose to the Eagles. So, hey, that might be what happens, Gilbert, just with the way you're
Yeah.
looking at the NFC. It sounds like it's the Eagles, and then everybody else is a tier behind. I truly believe that, especially after what's happened in week 2. We'll see what happens with the Lions, but that defense scares me if I'm the Lions.
Yeah, this could be my final takeaway.
Yeah.
I disagree there, Vic. I still think the Rams are a divisional team. I don't think they go further than that. I'd rather have the Packers, Lions, Buccaneers to compete against the Eagles. I just think they're a top 4, top 5 team in the NFC. They just don't have the secondary. I don't think the O line is that good. You don't have enough, at least you do have depth, but you don't use the depth on the offense. So you have an aging quarterback. So to me, they just feel like a divisional round team. And you made all these moves to do better than that. And today proved that they still have ways to go.
Yep. I'm gonna go quick with these comments. I won't give you my final takeaways. We'll just talk about the preview on Wednesday. But because I want to get to these, it says Anson T is asking, do you think Cardi's kicks have a particular low trajectory, or were those two block kicks just good plays by the Eagles? I explained earlier in the show that them losing their two, not having Avila and then Kevin Dotson being injured, I think affected that. They took the Eagles, took advantage of that interior, rightfully so. Jordan Davis, just all muscle the left guard there, and both times, and he was the reason. He's the reason why they won this game was Jordan Davis, and it's good that he lost all that weight, and I think he returned he returned that block kick for a touchdown. So, and then one more here. Gilbert says JT57 says Lane B now changed the game for y'all. To be honest, and we talked about that too. But I feel like at least you guys, at least with the Eagles, they were able to make the adjustment where their offensive lineman that they replaced Lane Johnson with did a better job than the two that came in. Like Bo Limmer just got you know destroyed, as a replacement. So I think that's where the trenches continue to be, as you mentioned, Gilbert, the difference between these two teams.
Yeah, I wonder if they had their complete O line, if they win the game by just
Yeah.
having the same ugly football. But at least I don't think that would be the case. So that's a testament to the Rams, but it does change their game plan a bit.
Yeah, and then, like I said, and the Eagles having depth even after losing an All Pro like that. He's JK. One last one. I promise, Gilbert. I know you got to go. He says, "What's your Rams prediction for the season? Record prediction? What did you
Well,
have?"
I think I had maybe 11 wins or 10 wins.
Yeah.
I forget, but I did predict the Rams would win and no, actually I did not. I changed my mind last minute. I have the Cardinals winning in the NFC West. That was before the season starts. The Cardinals haven't looked that good so far. They are undefeated, but I still think the Rams to change my, pick there a little bit. I think the Rams still look better than those teams. We'll find out. It's still early. Maybe I am right with the Cardinals, but I still had I still had the Rams in the playoffs. But like I said earlier, and how I still feel today, they're a divisional round team and out, and that's it to me.
Yeah, and we'll see. Like I said, if they fix some of those issues that we talked about in this show, I feel like they can make it back. They can go around further. One last one, they were 600 plus pounds crashing down to block both of those kicks. So that was also
Yeah.
huge
That's
there.
another
All right.
advantage for the Eagles. They have Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and they have depth in the interior. And you don't have a
Yeah.
good interior O line. You're gonna not have good results against teams like that.
Yeah, I think now, Gilbert, I want to see how they respond against the 3-0 Colts. We'll be back on Wednesday to preview that matchup. So
Yeah.
stay locked in. I want to give a shout out to everybody who checked in with us today. Delver, JK47, Anson T, JT57 from the Eagles there. Daniel Calderon, who started it. He left a message before we hopped on. So everybody who jumped on here, even James Wheelock, we really appreciate you guys checking us out. I wanted to make sure we got to those comments. So again, thank you guys for joining us today, Gilbert. And go ahead, and we're officially out of here on a collapse here by the
Man.
Rams, but we'll be back on Wednesday.
Yeah, tough one here for the Rams, but there was a lot of positives. I obviously all you got to do is ask to make the playoffs, and the Rams are on track to make the playoffs. So we'll find out when they get there. If any of these problems change during the course of the season, but it's time for the Rams to recover. So thank you for joining us. Like Victor said, thank you for the comments, but it's time to get going. Ya nos vamos, pues.